Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Tuned In with Intersys. I'm your host, Johnny Romero, and I have another guest that I'm excited to introduce you all to, Francesca Conti. She is an Italian interpreter, and she is someone that was kind enough to join me and have a little chat and conversation about what is that she does as a professional interpreter. So welcome, Francesca, to our program.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me. So nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So our theme this year is hashtag more than bilingual. And what we've really been trying to highlight and share with everybody is that language interpretation, as well as document translation and language access in a professional setting is much more than just being a bilingual proficient, right? And so with that in mind, let's just kind of start things out with the languages you speak, how you learn them, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So the first language that I have ever studied is actually is English. Okay. So I started when I was a kid, when I was in primary school. And I really enjoyed it. So I realized during those years that I wanted to do this as a job, that I wanted to work in the field of foreign languages and foreign cultures, because I felt that foreign languages were actually quite easy for me. I wasn't struggling with that. So, and I really enjoyed English, and yes, I kept on studying during the middle school and high school. In high school, I also started studying Spanish and French. I fell in love with Spanish. Then I started university, and I studied English and Portuguese, just as you.
Nice.
Yes. The thing that actually was a real game changer, I think, was my Erasmus period in England. I spent about 4 months in Birmingham, and there I had a really nice time. It was really the best time of my life. I learned a lot from the academic, but also from personal point of view. Yes, I learned a lot of the slang words. So I felt like it really changed everything for me from the linguistic point of view, of course. And after my bachelor's degree, I started studying for my master's degree, and there I actually had to switch to Spanish and I had to leave Portuguese. It was really a shame. So I think that my next language is going to be Portuguese. I wanted to start again. And then after my master's degree, I decided, because I never stop, I decided to go to Madrid, Spain, for 4 months again, because I wanted to strengthen my interpretation skills in Spanish especially. So I packed basically with my boyfriend and I left for Madrid. And there I took a specialization course in interpreting for 4 months with some really special colleagues and really special professors. I'm really grateful to them. And that was really a very nice experience. So that's how everything started, because from there I started to work as a professional interpreter. Also, this postgraduate course in Madrid was also a game changer, because from then I started feeling much more prepared, especially in Spanish. So from there, I decided to start in the market of interpretation.
Very nice. And so besides that, I'm sure tapas and paella, sangria had a little bit of something to do with it too, right? So,
yeah, tapas, we'll talk about especially tapas.
Very nice. So then you are currently in Italy. What part of Italy, and is that where you're originally from, or have you done some moving around in Italy as well?
I'm in Rome. I'm living in Rome. I'm born and raised in Rome, But I left Rome for 2 years for translate during the pandemic for my master's degree. I went to Milan and I spent about 2 years there. Actually, since there was COVID, I had to go back and forth once in 2 months.
Okay.
But I tried to spend there as much as time there, because I wanted to use my time in a new city, because I decided to move there for a reason, because I wanted to live new experiences. It wasn't the same as living such an experience in a normal period, because the pandemic forced us to spend a lot of time in our houses. But there. That's the only period where I left home but stayed in Italy.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit, since we're talking about Italy. What are some of the things that, because it's one of the places I plan to visit, haven't been there yet. I definitely want to go. So what would you recommend I should put on my short list of things to do for my first visit to Rome, whenever that happens? It'll definitely happen at some point, hopefully in the near future.
Interesting. It would be your first time in Italy?
Right. Correct.
Okay. Well, if you come to Rome, you definitely have to try our local food, which is pasta. There are 3 main types of pasta that I would recommend you, which are carbonara, amatriciana, which is with tomato sauce, and guanciale, which is a kind of bacon, but it's not real bacon. It's better.
Okay.
And there is cacio e pepe, which is with cheese. There's also another kind of pasta, which is a mixture of cacio e pepe and amatriciana.
Okay.
But yes, and you can choose the kind of pasta that you prefer.
Nice. And love that. You had me already with the carbonara and everything. I think with the bacon,
carbonara is perfect.
If it's like bacon or better.
Dish. Okay. Yes. And then, of course, you have to come here to Rome and visit the city center, because it's wonderful. I would recommend you to come in October, because there is a period here in Rome that we call Ottobrata. Okay, because Ottobre is October. Okay. And it's a very nice period, because it's still not that cold. It's still warm. And if it's sunny, it's perfect. If you go to the city center, you have a walk, you go shopping, or just to take some pictures. It's really nice. And you start seeing the colors of autumn. So it's perfect. Yeah.
That's great suggestions. Yeah, I think that sounds like a plan to me. So looking forward to, I'll look at October. That sounds like the perfect time too. I think usually flights tend to be pretty inexpensive, especially from Portugal to Italy. Everything in Europe in that way. It's one of the things I really enjoy about kind of traveling within Europe. It's relatively attainable, and depending on the time of year. So great. Thank you so much for that. So then
you're welcome.
You are a medical interpreter, correct? And so that's, a specialization in regards to our profession. And I think it's something that it's worth kind of just explaining a little bit of how you were able to specialize in that, and what type of training you acquired, and how you were able to really not just the language, which is, again, kind of the starting point, but what are some other things that helped you really feel comfortable in that space?
Okay, yeah, good question. I think that a specialization field is very important in our sector, in our industry, because that really helps you to find your position in the market. Okay, and you also feel more comfortable with yourself and with proposing your services to clients or agencies, because you feel that you are powerful, you are strong in something, okay, in something really specific. So I chose medicine as my specialization field because during my master's degree, we studied a lot of medicine during the specialized languages course. I had a really special professor who made me fall in love with the medicine field. So we studied a lot of medicine. We talked about neurology, hematology, lymphomas, many things. So we studied a lot of this stuff. I wrote my dissertation on medicine. I wrote my dissertation on medical language and the difficulties of communication between patients and doctors, because usually doctors are not able to explain the problems to patients because they use a lot of technicalities, which is
Right.
something that's very, very hard to understand for patients. So it's really important to find a way to communicate in certain situations. And from there, after my graduation, I decided to specialize in this field. And I took part in a specialization course in medical interpreting, which took place online, with teacher Stefania Crisari, which is a professor here in Rome. This course, I think it lasted 6 months. Yes,
Okay.
it was a really intense course. And I remember that I was working at that time, not as an interpreter. So I used to work from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. Then
Okay.
I used to go back home, and I had this course twice a week. But it was really, really interesting. It really helped me get the knowledge that you need to start in this field, because medicine it's huge. It's a huge
Sure.
field. There are many things that you need to understand, that you need to know. Also because it's not only about the words. Okay, you don't have to know the words so that you can translate a concept from one language to another. Okay, you also need to know what you're saying. Okay,
Yes.
so that course helped me to understand actually what a concept means. All the characteristics, all the symptoms of a disease, all the consequences, treatments, and so on and so forth. So it was really, really interesting, also because I really like the field. So yeah.
Along those lines, you're also, to be clear, a simultaneous interpreter, which is really a specialty. I teach consecutive interpreting in my medical interpreting classes, but also I have a workshop with simultaneous interpreting because of the fact that it is, again, its own specialty. So, can you talk a little bit about how you really chose simultaneous interpreting, and maybe some tips of somebody that's interested in really improving those skills? How can they go about doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So simultaneous interpreting, it's as you said, is a skill, because you have to listen to the speaker speaking, okay, and you have to speak at the same time. You have to listen to the speaker who is continuing with the speech, and you have to listen to yourself. So it needs a lot of practice. So a tip that I want to share is that yes, you need to practice a lot. Even if you are alone, it's okay. You can record yourself, and then you listen to yourself, and you can write down the mistakes that you made, if the register was okay, if your intonation was fine, and this kind of stuff. If you can practice with a colleague, much better. If you are practicing I don't know, simultaneous from your mother tongue to a foreign language, and you have a foreign colleague who can help you, that's much better. For example, that's something that I do with my Spanish friend. We exercise a lot. But if you can't, you can use your phone, you can record yourself, and that's perfect. One thing that I started doing recently is I created a notebook, okay, which is dedicated to my practice days. Okay, so I write down my notes about my recordings. So yes, I write down the title of the video that I decided to interpret, so I know the topic. Okay, because every practice can be about different topics. And I write down my mistakes, intonation notes, notes about the register, or different kind of notes. This has to be improved. This was okay, blah, blah, blah. That's
awesome.
very useful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think that is something that a lot of viewers that are already interpreters that maybe haven't had yet that type of experience can definitely use to, work toward becoming a simultaneous interpreter like you. So that's great advice. Thanks for sharing it. Great points. I think, word structure, roots, prefixes, suffixes, all of those things that a lot of times are used obviously in communication, but aren't really dissected as you do when you take a course like you're describing, and really helping you understand that it's not a literal word for word course. But again, you talked about the concept, and I think that's really something where the training is so crucial, right? So that the ideas can be communicated meaning for meaning, because sometimes when you interpret from English to another language, whether it's Italian, Spanish, or Portuguese, or whatever other language, there are words that don't have a word equivalent in the target language, right? And so from the source being English, there might be a description of it, but understanding the concept, understanding the context of it allows you really to find the appropriate words in your target language, in this case, Italian for you, so that it can be communicated in a way that is accurate. Thank you. And then, you're really young as well. We're not going to ask your age. It's not necessary. But a lot of times too, I think a lot of times it can be a little bit impactful for individuals to see someone like yourself that is young, that has the training, that has the expertise, providing a service that is very much technical in nature, and also something that is really a frontline worker role, right? Because you're supporting individuals. You mentioned COVID and the pandemic. That, I think, really brought to the forefront how important language access was, right? Because now it was such a paradigm shift where we had to now go to virtual and over the phone, but still in person was still happening. And it was something where we all adapted to that, and understanding how important training was. So during the pandemic, you mentioned that some of those things influenced you. Were you able to do interpretation during the pandemic, or I know you were obviously getting training, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was still getting training. It was just in the middle of my master's degree, but it just took 2 weeks for my university to get ready to provide a teaching platform that could allow us to get the training that we needed to go on with the classes. So we just stopped for 2 weeks, I remember. And then there was this new app, which is Microsoft Teams.
Yes,
we used that app to take part in our classes. So yeah, the thing is, it took a lot of time to get used to the fact that we still needed to use the virtual modality to work or to participate in classes. So I think this is also true for much more expert interpreters.
Sure,
I think that they can say the same.
Yeah, I think, the benefit of being trained during that time is that you're now really acclimated to the new normal, right? Which is kind of this hybrid where we're doing in person, but we're doing a lot still virtually. So along those lines, now that we're sort of 2 years removed from a lot of the restrictions being lifted, which kind of happened in spring of 2022 for many areas, at least, and generalizing it. What would you say for someone who is interested and becoming an interpreter that, hey, I'm bilingual. I have that already, in my arsenal of skills. But what would you recommend they do to get the necessary training? But also, let's say they've already completed the training. What can they expect as far as starting out in the field of freelance interpreting? So let's kind of take the first part. If someone is bilingual and interested in getting some training, obviously you're in Italy right now. So specifically to your area, what would you recommend that they do kind of to get that career path moving?
Okay. Well, I think that being bilingual is really an asset, but as you were saying, that's not everything. So if you want to be an interpreter, you need to be trained as an interpreter. Also, if you want to work as a translator, if you are bilingual, of course, you need to be trained because you need to know to have the skills and the techniques. So if a person is bilingual and wants to become an interpreter, the first thing that they need to do is to find the right school. It could be far away or not, and it doesn't matter. It has to be a good school with good professors. And after graduation, the first thing that I would recommend to a wannabe interpreter is to not give up, because after graduation it's really hard to try to understand how this world works, because nobody tells us during our studies how it works out there. We don't know how it is to have a VAT number to pay taxes. We don't know how it is to work as freelancers. You have to find your own position in the market. You have to find your clients. Nobody does that for you. You need to do a lot of networking. You need to talk to as many people as possible, because you need to find the right colleagues. Then one day will also help you find assignments. Okay, so these are the worst parts, but also the nice parts, because that means that you are building your network. Okay, so you're finding your place if you do a nice job. So the most important thing that you should do after graduation is to find your own strategy, because sometimes students after graduation feel a little afraid. They feel a little uncomfortable because they actually don't know what to do. They say, okay, what now? Because they expect that somebody is going to help them, okay, like a professor, but actually that doesn't happen. I mean, maybe not to everyone. There may be some lucky case, but yeah, sometimes you need to use your own strengths. So you need to find your own coping strategy. Okay, you build your strategy. You need to start writing emails to clients and translation agencies. So the problem sometimes is that for young interpreters, since they don't have experience, okay, they're very young, they don't know how to present themselves to translation agencies or clients, and they can make many mistakes. Like they could say, I'm a young interpreter, I'm a wannabe interpreter, and I'm trying to find new job opportunities, which is actually a mistake that I made myself, because I didn't know how to present myself to the market. So and actually translation agencies in that period never answered me. Okay, or they answered me and told me we aren't actually looking for new interpreters or translators. You don't have experience, so maybe you should try to get more experience. But that's a vicious circle. If you don't give me the opportunity to make experiences, how can I make it? How do I start? Okay. Yeah, you were saying.
So absolutely. So then really it's a matter of representing yourself in a way where you're not already at a disadvantage, right? I think words matter. So while you're being honest that, yes, we're all at some point new in our field, in our profession, putting it out there in the very beginning, it's sort of, again, giving yourself a negative light where you're already giving them the ammunition to turn you down because they're interpreting it, no pun intended, as if you really aren't prepared, or really that's not the case. So, yeah, I think that's great advice because a lot of times I train interpreters, medical interpreters specifically through the program that we teach online. And I include in that training what you described of setting the right expectations, that it isn't going to be where you're going to make so much money right out from training, right? That I think that's the dream. Obviously, we do this to make a living and a lucrative one at that. But it does take time.
It's a passion. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes
and
time.
I think you have to be willing to do what you described too, which is take the initiative and also use the right phrasing so that you don't sell yourself short or put up the barrier for individuals that they may not really feel comfortable giving you that opportunity. So sometimes less is more, and just letting them know I'm available. I have these qualifications. I'm ready to work. Those specific ways of, again, representing yourself using that language that makes you attractive for agencies to say, oh, sure, let's try Francesca and see how she does with this assignment. So I think those are nuances that are very, very helpful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think the other part, what you mentioned, is goes into having patience. I think you have to understand it does take time, and there is a level of discomfort and pain, to be honest with you. We sort of talked about that before we started.
A lot of pain.
But I like the way you said it, because you mentioned it's also the fun part, because when you do see things developing and progressing, you have a satisfaction. Do you agree that, wow, all that work that I put into it is paying off, and people are seeing that I am valuable. They see that I am worth, giving the opportunity to. So it's very rewarding, but you don't get the reward until you go through the pain. So you have to kind of, be willing to go through that.
No pain, no gain.
That's it. And I think, it takes a level of understanding that having that right expectation that I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to go through the growing pains of being someone new in this field, but it is very rewarding and very satisfying. Like you said, the other point I really appreciated was the networking part. Case in point, you and I, right, are in having this connection and being part of the same network. I think that is very valuable too, and that takes time as well, because while you want to trust everyone, you do have to do some due diligence to make sure that you're working with and collaborating with individuals that share the same values that you do, that are individuals that are following the code of ethics and everything. It'd be great to say everyone does that, but the truth is it's not always the case. So you do want to be, use discernment, be judicious with those things, make good choices. Because the other part that I think is kind of also helpful is the client base, right? Because we talked about the training, going through some of the pain, the growing pains that come with that. And part of that is, what is the ideal client? It looks different for everyone. So along those lines,
Absolutely.
What helped you find the right clients, and what was your kind of process to do that? And are there any tips for anyone that's in that process now, as far as, how do you go about, negotiating or, setting the terms, and what's worked for you?
Okay. Well, that really depends on the experience of everyone. It really depends. Every pathway is different. What worked for me is actually that I started building my own strategy. Okay. As you said, it is rewarding, it is satisfying, but it takes a lot of time. At the beginning, I made many mistakes, but after some time, I started seeing some rewards, some changes, and that was also something useful, because I could see that now the things are working, and I understand what I shouldn't do in order not to make the same mistake. Okay, so I started seeing that the strategy actually works. What I do is to search for clients on the social media. I use a lot Instagram. I use LinkedIn. If I see a web page that really interests me, I take a screenshot and I save it for later. And then when I have time, I try to contact the client if I can, if there is a way. Then as far as translation agencies are concerned, I try to contact with them first by phone. If I can, I call them and I try to understand whether they have a specific email address that I can contact to send them my CV. I also prepared a portfolio, and that took a lot of time, but I'm really satisfied. And that really helps clients and translation agencies to actually see what you do, because they see pictures. If you have them, they can see videos. They can see also what you do in terms of translation, because if you are a translator, you can put it on your portfolio some of your work. Okay, so they can compare. Okay, if you work for them. Yeah, that's it. I think this is what helps actually, and that's what helped me. This is how I reach translation agencies and clients. Sometimes, if I know that an agency is in Rome, I actually go there and knock,
Yeah.
because that helps you build a connection with them, and they usually are very impressed.
Sure. Yeah,
So
I think that's almost, it's funny you say that, because we are so accustomed now to technology, virtual phone and texting and all these things, that visiting someone in person, that's actually my preference if I have the opportunity. Sometimes logistically it's not possible. But if, like you said, if it's in your area, I don't think there's anything better than face-to-face, and I think, some people may call that old school. I think it's really just the right school, to kind of
human. Yes,
human contact.
Yes. Because if they see you, they think, oh, she used her time to come here to talk with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I think
that's
it's very genuine. Yeah. It really builds the relationship. And I think that's the way it should be, to your point. And so kudos to you on that. And I also liked how you said of what not to do, because I think it's kind of like reverse engineering of, how we can be successful. And you look at, again, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, but I know what I'm not going to do. And I think, that goes into another point. A lot of times I share with new interpreters, when I started out by myself, before I had, a network of interpreters and became really an agency later, was using my words to represent myself, kind of going back to what you mentioned as you're starting out, so that I didn't give the wrong impression and I didn't turn anybody away. So for example, I was working about 3 different agencies when I first started out, and I really didn't know anybody, and I just was looking for work. And of course, you get offered work at the same day and time, and you can only be at one place at once. So I was like, okay, I don't want to say no, because if I keep saying no to these agencies, they're going to stop reaching out to me.
Yeah.
So what I would do, and this is a little, suggestion for anybody watching, is I would say no without saying no. And the way I did that is, if someone would reach out to me and say, oh, Johnny, we have an appointment Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. And if I was already booked, I would never write the words "no." I would never say no. I would say something like, thank you for offering me that opportunity. I'm actually booked at that time, but I'm available from 12:30 to 3:30. So I'd always give them my availability. I'd always give them an
option.
And I never, ever replied with the words no. And I'll tell you, those same agencies every day kept on reaching out to me, even though most of the time I wasn't available. But because I replied back, I was always grateful. And I always maintained, that communication with them of what my availability was. that's all that really mattered. And so,
Yeah, it's very
like
simple.
you said, it's very simple, but also very easy to make the mistake of like, no, not available. No, sorry. Because people get kind of, again, it's all about perception. And the perception
Yeah.
is if I keep reading NO from you every single time and it's very short and like very, again, it comes off derogatory, that's a way that you can unintentionally kind of cut the ties with an agency that really can provide you that opportunity to progress. So those are the great tips
that's a
and
good
advice.
tip.
Yeah. I appreciate your time. I want to take a look at here just as we wrap up. If someone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way? If they want to kind of use your services, we need a medical interpreter, again, Italian specifically being the target language. What's the easiest way to communicate and contact you?
Via email, I think it's the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always
Very
available, and I try to reply as soon as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and we'll have
if they
all
want,
of your...
they can also give me a call.
Okay, very good. Yeah, we'll definitely share that with those viewing us online.
Thank you.
Whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube, we'll make sure we have Francesca's information so you can reach out to her and also connect with her online. She's on LinkedIn and also other social media platforms. We'll share all of that with you. If you're watching this, it'll be linked in the description. The other thing that I wanted to just touch base before we wrap up is going back to the theme, which is more than bilingual. And, as we continue to work in our craft, I think it's something where we are always learning. It's one of the things I love about, language access, interpretation, translation. It never ends. I think if you love to learn, this is the field for you. If you don't like to learn, it's probably going to be very
You're in the right place. In the wrong place, sorry.
Yeah, the wrong place, yeah. So then what do you feel, as far as someone that's really a language proficient, but perhaps really wants to work on their cultural awareness, we want to call it cultural competency. What are some good ways that you've been able to, obviously you are in the community that you grew up in, so that's great. But I still think even with that all, it's not automatic. Just because I live somewhere, I'm connected to the culture. So what cultures are you connected to? Would you say you identify with? And how have you been able to stay connected to those cultures?
I think that the culture I'm more connected with right now is the Spanish culture, because as I said, I spent some months there in Madrid last year, and I still feel connected to that country because there's a friend of mine who is living there. She's Italian too, and I recently visited her in November. It was perfect because I was really missing Madrid, and she hosted me. And there's another friend there, and she is actually Spanish. She's from Zaragoza, and they both really helped me starting in this field and feeling more confident. We actually grew up as interpreters together, the three of us. So I really feel connected with that culture, because I also feel very close to Spain, being Italian. I don't know if it's a stereotype, but I really feel very connected because I think that there is a real closeness between Italy and Spain. I don't know, also because of the quality of life. Estoy encantada.
Tiene sentido
Sí.
eso. Yeah. Muy bien, muy bien. Pues un poco de español sería bien que mencionemos que el que esté viendo este programa, más tarde pienso hacer otra serie de entrevistas en español para que las personas puedan escucharlo en su lenguaje de corazón, ¿no? Esa sería la idea. So for those that are watching again, we have a lot of followers from Venezuela, South America, again, Colombia, the islands, the Caribbean, of course. So we'll probably do a series in Spanish. And I want to learn Italian. So, I'll be definitely talking to you.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, I know where to find you. And I think, your description, though, it's interesting because when we talk about those similarities and the quality of life. I think that really is something that is attractive to individuals that adopt another culture, because obviously you're very much tied to your culture in Rome and Italy, but yet that does not make it necessarily exclusive, right? Where you can be a part of other cultures. And I think that's the beauty of language. When we learn a language and we include the culture, it goes beyond the proficiency. It goes, again, in line with what we talked about, more than bilingual. So if you are in this area of Portugal, I'm in northern Portugal right now, but Portugal is not that big of a country. You have my information, conversely, so we can definitely help each other learn the other languages. I'll help you with the Portuguese, and you can help me with the Italian. But it's been a pleasure having you with us. And
my pleasure.
We can probably follow up with you later as you the year's only beginning.
Okay.
And we're starting out this theme, so it's very possible we'll circle back with you and see how the year has gone. What goals do you have? That being said, since now we are already a month into 2024, what are some of the things that you'd like to get accomplished by the end of the year that at least you have on your short list of goals?
You mean professionally?
Yeah, professional or personal, either or both.
Okay. My goal is professionally maybe to find more clients and to keep working with the clients that I had that I used to have last year. Yeah, because that means that there is trust between us, between the parts. And I also hope to find new special colleagues and to keep on working with the actual ones.
Excellent.
They're great.
Yeah, retention is huge. That's another topic. Maybe we can leave that for the next time we talk. How can you keep your existing clients? That's huge. So retention is key.
Yeah, that's hard work.
Yes, absolutely. Well, no doubt the results that you've had is because you are a hard worker. So we thank you for taking some time to spend with us today. And we'll definitely continue staying in touch.
I'm Francesca Conti, and I'm tuned in.